taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Kia EV9. This is the exact same screen that you're going to see across the entire vehicle lineup. So let's dive in. I'm going to show you everything that you need to know. First thing I'm going to point out is that you've got a nice swipe. It's very, very responsive. Along the screen, top left side, you've got this, and you can hit profile settings, and that's going to let you change out users. There are 3 different options that are available. So driver 1, driver 2 versus guest, and you can't add any more in. So it's maximum 3. But that's going to do things like remember all of your destinations, remember all of your presets, your phones that are connected, all of your EV charge settings and things like that. So if you've got multiple people in the vehicle, you definitely want to make sure you adjust your profile settings. There's an online manual as well. So all you're going to do is just scan using your phone. You can see there, pull up into Kia, and then that is going to launch into your digital owner's manual online. So if this vehicle doesn't cover off everything you need to know, you've got that available as an option. Moving back home, there's the current day, your current time, and then connection level. If you swipe down from the top of the screen, you've got this quick launch tray. So you can toggle the display off here, go into split screen if it's available, go into an auto light mode, or you can also adjust the brightness of the screen this way. You can adjust your navigation volume, your beeps and sounds. You can adjust passenger talk to hear what's going on in the back seat, and then quiet mode, which is only going to play audio through the front speakers. You can hit that settings icon and customize the screen a little bit as well. So let's say if you had a preference, maybe you didn't care about passenger talk being on there, but you wanted the voice memo to be there, you can hit done, and then that's going to adjust what's showing up in this quick launch tray. You can then swipe up in order to get rid of it. You've got factory navigation and so many other things. Along the side, you can also see all of your climate control settings. So you can show driver, passenger side. You can hit this button in order to go to some advanced climate settings. So you could adjust it this way instead if you want to, for both the front and for the rear. You could also toggle on a few things. So you can adjust your fan speed there. Like I said, adjust. You can have it go driver only mode, turn it off, and things like that. So a lot of options, and then just exit out. You can have it go into your windshield, air circulation, etc. And then also along the side, you can see that there's a rear button as well. So just a quick launch if you wanted to adjust your front versus rear climate, just in an easier to go to area instead. The vehicle has factory navigation, and using factory nav, very, very straightforward. So it does have pinch to zoom capabilities. One thing is that as you start to drag, you can see there, it's essentially saying, where do you want to go as like your end destination point? So on this screen, if you just hit this, it's going to circle it back out to you. But you can pinch to zoom this way if you want to. You can change up your heading view, so whether that's north, etc. 3D view. I think the 3D view looks kind of nice. Matter of preference. You can adjust your guidance volume. So if you wanted to get turn-by-turn directions using a voice or just a beep. So the difference there is that as you have an upcoming turn, it's going to tell you or it'll beep at you. Priority, if you've got the audio cranked and then you come down, you're coming up to a turn, it'll lower the volume so that you can hear what's going on. You can go to an auto mode and then scale out as well. So it's essentially just a different way to do pinch to zoom. You can hit this button in order to go to a few options. So you've got your traffic information. You can see your total EV range there as well. There we go. Just waiting for that one. So it's going to show you everywhere that you can go based off of your current range. Kind of neat. And then back out to the center. This way gives you nearby information, traffic saved, boatload of navigation settings, which I'll touch on in just a second. So searching for addresses, you can search by GPS coordinates. So latitude first, longitude second. You can go by point of interest icons, look for charging stations and things like that. So if we, nice and Canadian of me, search for Tim Hortons, that's going to show us a boatload of different options that are available. Let's take one that's a little bit further away. There we go. And you can set it as a destination, search nearby, but let's set it for a second. And you can see there are the same route. So if there was a faster route or more economical route available, there we go. So if you wanted to take the highway to get there, if you wanted to go these routes instead, you'd have different options that are available. You could then start guidance if you want. And there we go. It's going to tell us where we're going. And then that's also going to show up inside of the cluster screen of the vehicle as well. You could then also hit search. So let's say if you wanted to stop at a charging station and we want to go station here and we want to add it as a stop. So we've got our main end destination, which is the Tim Hortons, and then we can do a drag and drop here. So let's say if you wanted to charge up first before Tim Hortons, or go to Tim Hortons before you charge, you could then calculate. It's going to show you the way that we have to go to get there, and then just start guidance. And it's saying it's going to take an hour and change to get there because it's going under the assumption that we're going to stop and charge up before you get to your end destination. From there, you can hit this in order to get to your route information again. You can recalculate, look at route options. So if you wanted to avoid things on your route as well, that would be available. If we hop back for a second, guidance is going to return to the previous route. That's fine. And back and delete. And that's fully canceled the route out. You can see that we've got a little split screen here as well. So you can see what's currently available. You can swipe across in order to go to a full screen instead. Now, if you hit here and go to your navigation settings, it gives you a boatload of options. So you can display your vehicle speed inside of the map, your traffic information, show point of interest icons, route options. Do you want the fastest, the most economical, or do you want freeway preferred? Do you want to get alerts? Do you want to adjust your map mode? It's kind of nice, so 3D. Do you want either large or small font? So you can see it kind of adjusting there. What look do you want for your map? Clean versus clean dark. And then some other options as well. So previous destinations, do you want to save them or not? General safety, you could say no, because if somebody steals your car, they can't see where you've currently gone to, or you've gone to in the past, I should say. And then your GPS information. So if the vehicle's died, you need to call a tow, or you're lost, you can also let them know what your latitude and longitude is as well. Straightforward. It's really straightforward using it. Yeah, I love that black look instead. Oh, that looks nicer, I think. Versus the white map instead, I personally prefer this one. That's going to be a matter of preference. But that's how you use factory navigation inside the vehicle. Next up is going to be media. So you've got a few different ways that you can get to it. So along the bottom, you can hit the home icon, hit there to get into your media, push it again to get to media in a different view. So you've got a few different ways you can adjust, but in your regular media, you've got FM, AM, SiriusXM as well. And then you've got the options. So you see how there's this little star icon next to all of them. Those are saving your presets. So all you're going to do is just do a button press next to any of the stations that you want to be able to save. So you could adjust out as you want to. Oh, these are all pretty good stations. And if you go to favorites, it's going to show all of the stations that you've currently favorited. So there are a lot. You can push and hold in order to get to this screen, which is going to let you select different stations if you want to. And then you can hit delete, delete, and that's going to let you delete your stations. But if you do a press and hold again, you could also rearrange by going up and down. So you're going to hit the little hamburger icon, and once it becomes free, you can then drag it up and down in order to customize the layout of your presets. You could mark all, delete, unmark, whatever the case may be, and back. If you're an FM, you can hit the little hamburger icon to scan. You can refresh. So if you're new to an area or you're traveling, you're not sure what's available, refresh to see what's around you. You can tune manually using this kind of neat rocker, kind of like that. Or you can kind of plus and minus this way and then star out any station that you want. If you go back, that brings you back to this screen. You could enter a station manually, go to some sound settings and things like that. If you're in AM, it's the same thing, but SiriusXM gives you a few other options. So same idea, you can star out any station that you'd like to. Hitting this also shows you the option of adjusting, so you can go to your channel name, subscription status, and some additional sound settings. Gives you a boatload of options. The big one here, so sound maximizer or maximum limit. So if the volume is cranked and you go to turn the vehicle off and turn it back on again, it's going to limit it. So it won't be quite as loud when you go to start up. You can adjust your balance and fade this way. You can circle it out in the middle. You can have it focus on the driver, passenger, whatever the case may be. And then tone. You want to adjust it a little bit like this. So treble down like 2 to 3 points, bass cranked 4. In the EV9 with the lower number of speakers, I think gives really good audio. That's going to be a matter of preference, but adjust the treble mid-range bass to something that's good for your ears. But I personally find something like this tends to work well in the EV9. Let's see here, guidance volumes, which we've already seen. So with these ones here, what level do you want your beeps and alerts and things like that to be at? Let's see, navigation during phone calls. So if you're on an active phone call, it's going to essentially lower the phone call volume so that you can hear your navigation. If you've got audio going, it's going to lower your audio in order for you to be able to hear your turn-by-turn directions a little bit easier. Radio noise, nothing exciting. Haptic warning is an interesting one. If you start to veer over into a lane without signaling, or if you start to change lanes and there's somebody in your blind spot, it can shake the steering wheel a little bit. So it's almost like you're running over rumble pavement. You're not, but it is kind of neat to know that that setting is available. But you can turn it off. Safety priority, it's going to lower the volumes if you start to veer over into a lane without signaling, if you're potentially going to get into an accident and things like that. You can also adjust the volume for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. What level do you want all of these things to be at? And that's the basics of sounds. There's a lot of info there, but it's straightforward. The other one to point out is this. You've got Bluetooth sound, so if you prefer, just those relaxing sounds instead, you've got that available. Bluetooth audio if your phone is connected, and then a USB stick. So if you had a USB with MP3s, that would be available, and it's strictly going to be USB Type-C. So you have to use the port that's on the left-hand side, and you also have to make sure that you're in the transfer mode, because the top mode is strictly charging. Bottom mode with that button pushed is going to be charging as well as data transfer as well. So you just have to make sure that that's enabled to utilize USB music. And back, that's using media inside the vehicle. Next up is going to be EV, and EV gives you all options. So you can see here where the nearest charging station is, what your current battery level is, what your range is based off of a few things. So it's based off of having your climate going. So watch this. If we toggle climate off, you'll see there, you get better range. But as you turn climate on, that's the range that you're going to get with the climate currently enabled. You could then also, as you change drive modes, see how each mode is going to affect. So that's normal mode versus sport mode versus eco mode. And eco mode is where you're obviously going to get the best possible range inside of the vehicle. But I really love how Kia does this, how it updates it on the fly dynamically based off of your current drive mode. You can hit this in order to see the total distance that you can go, so where you can travel based off of your current range, and back out into, oh, that's weird. And your EV settings, that's what I'm looking for. You can swipe across in order to get to so many other things. Your battery status, you've got nearby charge stations, your charge door, whether or not you're locked in when you go to charge up and things like that. Along the very bottom, there are a boatload of other options available as well. So you've got your kind of main screen there. You can go to a summary view to see how much usage you've got. So the electricity usage is pretty cool because just based off of right now, I'm just sitting here parked. I'm using a boatload of the battery strictly on climate and then also on electronics. You can see next departure time too. Very useful because let's say if you have a tendency to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning, Monday to Friday, you can precondition the cabin. So if you want it nice and toasty warm, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m., you've got that flexibility. You've got two different options. So one when you're leaving home, one when you're leaving work, or whatever the case may be. AC charging, you can also schedule when you're charging. So you can charge only during off-peak hours or on-peak. And then you can also select here by just doing a drag and drop of when you're going to be charging up. So if you know you'll get cheap electricity rates between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., you can charge up between those hours if you want to. You've got charging current as well. So if you're plugged in, if for whatever reason you're getting issues and the vehicle's not charging up properly, it could be that there's a miscommunication and there might be too much power being supplied for the cable. So you might have to drop down to either 90 or 60%. It's going to charge a bit slower, but if you go lower voltage or your lower input, that means that you're pretty much guaranteed to be able to charge up. But I always default to just 100% of the maximum draw. Do you want the charge door locked? Yay or nay? Do you always want it locked just while you're charging or do not lock? Always charging is pretty useful because the charge cable is going to be locked in place so people just can't unplug it. While charging, if you lose charge or like if you lose power, people can unplug you from there or just never lock. It's going to be a matter of preference. Charging limit. DC, so fast charging, generally not a good idea to charge up to DC past 80%. AC, so your regular wall outlet. If you're using the charge up the next day, going to 100 is fine. General rule of thumb though, you want to go up to 80% though. And that's just to make sure that you're protecting the overall battery health. V to L is vehicle to load. So your vehicle's got the flexibility of essentially working as like a big battery. And you can let the battery drain until a certain percentage. So if you want to at least get 20% of the battery, whatever the case may be, you can adjust that one out. And then a series of settings. So battery conditioning mode for wintertime driving, utility mode if you want to use it as a big battery if you're glamping, smart regenerative braking. So there are a series of different toggles, or I should say paddle shifters on the steering wheel. So you've got minus on the right-hand side, plus on the left-hand side. And that's going to adjust the current level that you're in. So level 1 versus, okay, level 0 is going to be the minimum, I should say, versus I-pedal. I-pedal is like a one-pedal drive. So you take your foot off the accelerator and you slow down very, very rapidly. Versus level 0, you take your foot off the accelerator and you're going to slow down fairly slowly. But with smart regenerative braking, how fast or slow do you want to be able to decelerate there as well? So you can kind of set your own modes there if you'd like to. When you go to charge, so when you go to actually plug in, do you want to get a voice outside letting you know that you're actively charging? And that's using the charging in the EV settings inside of the EV9. Next up is going to be adding in a phone. So I'm going to start off on the iPhone side of things. I'm just going to go into Bluetooth, EV9, pins match up, so we're going to pair. Allow contacts and favorites to sync up. This is not my car, it's a press car, so I'm going to say no to that one. Obviously, if it was yours, you would say yes, and you are fully connected. Perfect. It's going to say downloading, but then it actually won't download. There we go. It won't actually download. Try again, no. And the phone is fully connected right now. So if your contacts were downloaded and things like that, that would show up. You've got your dial pad, your battery level, and things like that. And then text messages if they were available. I said no to those ones, which is why they're not showing. One nice thing about the EV9 is that you do have wireless CarPlay available as well. So it is wireless CarPlay, but you do also have the option of going backwards compatible. So you could use a USB cable if you really wanted to. But we're wireless, so you may as well use wireless CarPlay. Do you want to use it? You have to hit yes there in order to actively use it. But a few seconds in and boom, look at this. Fully connected. You've got your current, time, connection level, battery level, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was open last. And then you can hit this button in order to get to this little split screen and then back to an icon view. And you can swipe around and it is very, very responsive. If you had a calendar notification coming up, that would show up, and that's calendar notifications today. Otherwise, that's the basic screen. So it's your map, search, and then if you had podcasts and audio playing, whatever the case may be. You've got support for Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze. No pinch to zoom capabilities though, so you have to go in and out this way. Apple Maps is good. Google Maps is better, so you can easily search for addresses. You can avoid things on your route like highways, toll roads, and ferries. You can adjust your map colors, show traffic and things like that. Easily search for addresses that way. I prefer Waze though, for a few reasons. Like, I find it very easy to use, but as you, let's go this way, and we're going to hit here, and I want to zoom out for a second. You can see Waze users that are available. If there was traffic, if there was construction going on, things like that, people are pretty good at notifying other drivers and letting them know. And you can notify other drivers and let them know. So if you see a cop pulling people over, if there are hazards, block lanes, bad weather, things like that, you can give other drivers a heads up. So like I said, I'm a bigger fan of using that as an option, but it's going to be a matter of preference. But I really love using Waze. Hoopla is a library app, so you can listen to audiobooks. There's podcasts that are available as well, so you can listen to those through the screen here too. There are so many different options for audio, things like that, audiobooks, etc. Now, one cool thing is that when you're hooked up over your phone, whether that's Android or iPhones, on the steering wheel, if you do a long press and hold of that button, that's going to activate your Siri assistant instead, which very useful if you wanted to use Siri on your phone, and then back home from there. If you hit the home button here, that's going to bring you back to this screen. You can launch back into CarPlay if you wanted to. And then you've also got the flexibility to customize CarPlay a tiny little bit. So back on your phone, if you go into General, CarPlay, find your car, you can forget it, customize, and then also turn CarPlay off while the phone is locked. You always want to make sure that one's enabled. But if for whatever reason CarPlay is not working on your EV9, I've put together a walkthrough video going over some common options and how you can reset the screen. But you'll find that down in the description. But let's say if you wanted to customize the screen, like let's say if you don't care about having Zoom on there, you don't want YouTube music, things like that, you can delete things. So anything with a minus next to it on your phone, you can delete. You can also do a press and hold in order to move it. So if you have a tendency to, I don't know, maybe you want to use Waze as your default app up on the top. So you can really customize the screen to make it your own. You can also push the plus button there to add everything back in. But if you're not a fan of the changes that you've made along the top right of the phone, you can reset, reset, in order to bring it back to the factory default layout instead. If you hit back home, it's going to go back to this screen. If we jump into setup for a second, device connections, you've got the iPhone that's currently connected. You can disconnect from CarPlay if you wanted to hook up just for phone calls or just for audio. So I know that's quite a little bit of info, but that's how you set up Apple devices inside of the Kia EV9. Setting up Android devices is the exact same process. So if you weren't on this screen, all you're going to do is go to Setup, and then from there, Device Connections, and we're just going to go Add New. So you want to pull up and looking for the vehicle name, so EV9. PIN numbers match up, so we're going to pair. And it should take a second there. Perfect, and we're pairing up right now. Supports Android Auto, so do you want to use wireless Android Auto? Absolutely, let's do it. There we go, and it's launching in 3, 2, and fully connected. So this is going to be the basic screen that you're going to be met with. You can swipe across for different media. Along the top, it's going to be what battery level you're looking at and your connection level, your current time as well. On the phone, it's also popped up. Do I want to allow access to my contacts, my messages? Again, not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. But you can see all of your info there. It's a nice split screen with pinch to zoom capabilities, but you can go full screen by hitting this here. And that's saying no or unsuccessful because I selected no when I first connected the phone there. But you can see full pinch to zoom capabilities, nice and responsive. You can search for addresses. You can hit this icon there in order to look at a few things. So showing traffic, if you wanted to, show different route options. So avoiding highways, toll roads, ferries, things like that. You can easily search for addresses this way. So GPS coordinates, basic addresses. You can hit here to mute out if you don't want notifications as you come to an upcoming turn. You can change up heading views, perspective views, and things like that. You can hit the little icon view there in order to get back to that split screen. And then you can also hit it again in order to get to this little icon view. So the phone does have Waze installed, and you can see Waze popping up there. But if you've got Waze installed on your Android and it's not working or not showing up properly, I put a little walkthrough video together showing you how you can get Waze on your phone. You'll find that down in the description of this video. But there are quite a few different apps that are available, Spotify, things like that. It's just that I don't have a ton of apps on this phone, but there are quite an extensive list of apps available. And on your phone, on your Android, if you search for Android Auto, go to your Android Auto settings, it brings you up to a boatload of different options. So one thing that we could do is customize the launcher. So if you are a big fan, you want Waze on the very top, and you don't care about your phone, but you want Waze before messages, and maybe you also want to have Google Maps up there as well, just in case. You can hold the little hamburger icon to bring it up, but it's not dynamic the same way it was on the iPhone side. So in order for these settings to change and show up, hit Setup, go into your device, disconnect from Android Auto, reconnect to Android Auto, and it launches in. Go to your icon view, and all of the changes that we've made have now come into effect. So you can add in additional apps if they were available, things like that. But that's how you customize the screen. And then hopping back home into device connections, you can either be hooked up to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, not both. But let's say if you wanted to strictly use one phone for, let's say, phone calls and one for audio, you can do a mix and match here. So it can either be Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but a mix here. And then you can also do a drag and drop to see who gets connection priority if you've got multiple people inside of the vehicle. You saw there, so you can also hit delete devices, mark all, and then delete. And yes, and this is going to delete both devices from the vehicle. So it's that easy setting up Android and iPhones inside of the EV9. Here, Bluetooth prompts, nothing exciting there, but system information. So the default name is EV9, but if you wanted to change that out to anything else, you could. You're just going to go Bluetooth info, vehicle name, in order to adjust it out to whatever you'd like to instead. Phone projection for Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, you can disconnect. So if you were hooked up over USB, you can have it so that Android Auto and Apple CarPlay don't actually launch in. But that's how you add in a phone inside the vehicle. It's very straightforward. Phone projection, if you had Android Auto or Apple CarPlay selected, that would show up there. Voice memos are available, so you can record a voice note right to the vehicle if you'd like to. You can see weather, enter valet mode in order to lock the screen out. There's diagnostic information, online manual, and so many other things. But the big one here is going to be all of the available settings under your setup. So you can get to setup there. You can also push the setup button in order to jump into these settings, and it gives you so many options. So as of here, you can see it as an icon view. you can dive in to a list view instead. So let's dive through. First off is driver convenience settings. And as you can see there, boatload of options, but you've got smart cruise control. So smart cruise are going to be the buttons along the left-hand side of the steering wheel, the left pad there. So you can toggle cruise control on, increase, decrease speed, and then there's a distance indicator. But if you actually want to know how to use the smart cruise control system, check down in the description of this video for a walkthrough there. But you can adjust a few things here, the reaction and acceleration speed. General rule of thumb there, like I personally find 4 is the best, but that's going to be a matter of preference, but you can adjust this if you'd like to. Back to driving assistance, driving convenience, you've got driving safety. Forward safety, if there's a potential collision, it can brake for you automatically. If you're pulling out of a space and there's somebody coming perpendicular, so from the left or the right side, it can let you know of a potential collision. Lane safety, if you start to veer over into a lane without signaling, it can nudge you back into your lane. Blind spot safety, if somebody enters the blind spot on the other side of the vehicle, you can see there, it's going to highlight red. It's going to let you know that somebody's entered your blind spot. Pretty neat. Driver attention warning. So leading vehicle departure. So if you come down to a stop and the car in front of you starts driving and you haven't started driving yourself, you're going to get a notification inside of the cluster letting you know that the leading vehicle has departed. Speed limit warnings. Do you want to see the speed sign? Speed limit assist. If the speed, I should say, switches, let's say from 60, it drops down to 50, it's automatically going to lower you to that speed if you hit the switch along the steering wheel. So it's this switch here. So you're going to get a notification letting you know. You just push down or push up in order to adjust the speed. You can have nothing happen there, or you can have it with an offset. So if you're okay with going a little bit over or under the speed limit, you can have it set up this way as well. I think that was it for speed limit. Yeah, nothing exciting there. I'm personally a bigger fan of that, but that's a matter of preference. You've also got parking safety. There's rear cross traffic safety. So as you go to back up, if somebody's coming perpendicular from the left or the right, it can tell you of a potential collision. And then I think that's it there, outside of warning volumes. So yeah, warning haptic volumes, which we've already seen. Moving into drive modes. So you've got a few different drive modes that are available. So it's either eco, sport, or normal mode. And that's going to be for your unique drive mode. So along the steering wheel, the very bottom, you can go between different modes. So the My Drive mode is the one on the very bottom. So what do you want that mode to customize in order to be like? So when you're in your own drive mode, sport mode, eco mode, whatever the case may be. So you can really customize that and make it your own. What brake mode do you want to be in? Sporty braking is really nice. Nothing else exciting there. Keep these all as the default. So all on for automatic defog, defrost, things like that. Climate features, you can lock out the rear climate control. So if people in the back are fighting, you can make it so that they can't adjust it. And that's really it. Turn signals, when you go to hit the turn stalk, do you want to go either 1, 3, 5, or 7 flashes? When you go to lock the vehicle, do the lamps stay on for 15 seconds to make it easier for you to get back into your home at night? High beam assist. So with the vehicle in auto mode, you're going to have the option of pushing away for your high beam assist there. So if the vehicle recognizes that the high beams are needed, it's going to flip them on automatically. You can still flash yourself in the auto mode. If you want them permanently locked out though, just go to the top mode and push away in order to turn your high beams on yourself. But the auto high beam mode is a really nice one. Doors, when do you want to lock the doors? When do you want the doors to automatically unlock? So you can have it never automatically unlock. And if that's the case, in order to get out of the vehicle when you've turned it off, you just have to double pull the handle in order to be able to get out. Approach unlock, so as long as you've got the fob on you, you're walking up to the vehicle, the doors will unlock. Power liftgate you can disable. How fast or slow do you want it to open up, and what level do you want it to open up to as well? So if your garage is a little bit lower, you can set it at any of these levels or select your own level instead. And then there are 2 other cool options, smart liftgate and remote window control. Gives you the flexibility of doing a few unique things. So let's hop outside and I'll show you how those work. First one, you want to make sure that you're locked. And let's say if you've gone shopping, you've got a handful of groceries, kids, whatever the case may be. I'm just going for a walk because you have to get a little bit away before this trick works. So as long as the feature is enabled and you've got the key fob on you, you're just going to walk up to the back end. Watch this. So you could press the lock button to pause this part way if you wanted to, or to stop it from going, but smart trunk. Such a cool feature. And if you wanted to, push and hold there in order to close. But I love that smart trunk feature. Like rather than your traditional foot activated liftgate you'll find in other cars, with this one, even if the sensors are covered in snow, it's still gonna work. And then there is one other key fob trick, and that's if you push and hold the unlock button. Watch this. Windows start rolling down, you can release deposit, push and hold again in order to continue the cycle. So it lowers the driver passenger windows in the first and the second row. Really cool settings. I wish that it was remote window up as well, but at least the down function is really cool at the same time. Digital key, so you've got the flexibility of using your phone as a key. You do need the Kia app in order to use it, but if you actually wanted to see that process, unfortunately I can't show you in this video, but check down in the description in order to see a walkthrough on how that's done. Convenience settings give you a few options. You can disable the wireless charge pad if you want to. Rear occupant alert, if the back doors are opened up and then you turn the car off, it's going to let you know in the cluster to check the back seats to make sure you didn't forget about somebody. And that's the basics. Yeah, like I said, you can see it as either a list view or as an icon view to jump any of these other options there. And back into setup. And that gives us a few other options. So EV, we've already seen these EV settings. Navigation, we've already seen all these nav settings, but you've got your vehicle speed, point of interest icons. You can adjust your font size, your map colors, and things like that. Sound settings, which we've already seen, adjusting your treble, mid-range, and bass. Device connections, user profiles, if you've got multiple people driving. Voice recognition. So there's a voice command prompt on the steering wheel. So this little guy. So you press that, and that's going to bring up this setting. Honestly, I recommend getting used to this because there are so many things. You could turn the climate control. You can adjust how hot or how cold it is. You can open and close the windows. You can open and close the liftgate. You can open and close the charge door and so many other things strictly using your voice. So what I recommend is when you first get your Kia, go through the screen, go through all the different options because there are so many things that you can do. Reduce the number of prompts though, and the big reason why. Tune to 94.9 FM. And it just does it. So it just tunes it. So you won't get as many notifications as different things happen. So that's one that drives me nuts with the voice recognition. So if you don't like all of the extra notifications, just go reduce prompts instead. Screen layout. So you could adjust what's going on with the cluster itself. So you can adjust it out into a different theme. So if you wanted to link it to style A, B, or C, you've got that option. I personally am a big fan of C, so that's sportier mode, but that's going to be a matter of preference. So the benefit here is it's currently linked to drive mode, which means that as you change out your drive mode, it's going to change out the look. But if you love the look of sport, but the functionality of eco, you've got the flexibility to be able to adjust that out. A screensaver, so when the screen is off, what do you want it to look like? Do you want to have nothing on the screen there? Do you want to have a watch face on the screen instead? So it's a matter of preference, what ends up showing up there. With split screen, what do you want showing up here? Do you want to have your weather clock and things like that in the split screen? It was back here. So if we swipe across on this little guy, so you've got all of your available options here, or back to that full screen instead. And I think that was it for the screen. Yeah, that's the basics of the screen there. Display, you can adjust the brightness there. There's also the option of adjusting the cluster brightness just down by the left side there. So you can either decrease or increase the brightness of the cluster screen. And then you can adjust the brightness of the screen. Automatic brightness is it's automatically going to adjust how bright the screen is based off of how bright it is outside. Camera settings, rear view, parking lines. So if you are in reverse, those are your parking lines there. So whether or not that one shows up is a matter of preference. If you had the 360 camera, which the 360 camera looks so cool, it gives you a lot of extra functionality. But this vehicle, unfortunately, this specific model doesn't have that 360 camera. There are a series of different buttons that are available inside the vehicle as well. So there are 2 on the steering wheel here that you can adjust. And then there's also 1 down the center stack there as well. So the one down the center stack, what does that do? Does that go to electric vehicle mode? Phone projection, does it turn the display off? So if we hit that button now, toggles the display off. And then on the steering wheel, there are 2 buttons. So what does that star button do? Do you want it to go to the electric vehicle settings, turn your media on, off, go to the home screen, whatever the case may be, and then your mode button. That's going to jump you between all of your available sources. So whatever sources you tend to listen to, check them off, because then when you hit mode, it's going to jump you between all of those available options instead. The up-down button, so you can jump between all of your presets this way, but then you can also press and hold if you wanted to be able to seek that way instead. Kind of neat. And then there's also the volume knob and then touch sensitivity as well. So volume knob is going to be the little volume rocker down here. And then you can also adjust the sensitivity of all of these different buttons as well. So do you want to have high sensitivity so it's not going to require as much of a press to jump in between? Cluster, you can adjust the cluster a tiny little bit as well. So you can adjust the brightness this way if you'd like to. There's a blue light filter here too, which is kind of cool. So later on at night, it just makes it easier to see. So you can add a little bit more warmth if you want. Yeah, you can see there. Changes it up from like a nice color down to like a deeper, it gets rid of the blues essentially. So it just makes it easier to see later on at night. You can have it automatically come on at certain times as well to make it easier to see. Content selection. So do you want to get an icy road warning? Nothing exciting. And then welcome sound when you start the vehicle up. There's Kia Connect and then a series of general settings. So you can see what software version you're on and update if it's available. You can see system information, so storage, modem information, date and time. So this is grayed out because you're in the auto mode. But if you get out of the auto mode, you can adjust your date and time manually there if you'd like to. But honestly, auto is the best way to go. And then you can figure out if you're in that military time instead. So the 12 versus 24-hour mode. And then do you want to adjust for daylight savings time, yay or nay? You can adjust your language, so either English, French, Spanish, or Korean. Oh, let's make sure we don't do that. Uh-oh. There you go. Let's go back to English for a second. There we go. Perfect. I don't understand Korean. And we've got keyboard there as well. Do you want to be in QWERTY versus ABCD? Measurement units are available there too, so you can customize the units. Do you want to be in either kilometers or miles? And it adjusts what's going on inside of the cluster screen as you do that. And then you can show, do you want to be in PSI, kPa, bar? Do you want to be in either Celsius or Fahrenheit? And you can see the temperature adjusting there on the screen as you do that. So neat. Media off at startup. So if you've got your media playing, turn the car off. When you turn it on, the media won't be playing. Actually, I kind of like that one being on. And do you want to be able to continue to listen to media when the car is turned off for a few minutes there? And then reset. So you can reset all if you're out of the guest profile, and that's just going to bring you back to a factory default. And then you can individually adjust and delete each profile if you'd like to. A few other things to point out. So I mentioned there, so you've got all of your buttons. So that's going to be a button press to get to different options. So the home screen, you've got the map view, you can search, you can go to media that way. Button press again to get into more media options. Your custom button there, which this one we have adjusted to turn the screen off. There's a setup button as well in order to get to your basic setup screen. Back home. There's a volume rocker there. You can push to turn your audio on or off as well. You can adjust your temperature this way. So you've got some advanced controls on the left part of the infotainment system, but you can also adjust this way, adjust your fan speed, four-way blinkers, adjust your mode there as well. So you want it going to windshield face feet, some sort of Frankenstein combination. You can also adjust your passenger side temperature. Then if for whatever reason, let's say the screen's giving you issues, you see this little guy, that little pinhole, you've got the flexibility of rebooting the screen by inserting a paper clip. So you're just going to insert, see there, they're going to reset. It's going to take you a few seconds there before, yeah, we've got the Kia logo, and that's going to reboot the screen for you. So if you're ever running into any problems, like the screen's not functioning properly, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto aren't working, navigation's not working, reset the screen, reboot it. It doesn't delete any information, it just does a soft reboot instead. That's going to load you back into that screen, and that's going to essentially get rid of any issues that you might be facing. But yeah, it's just a simple pin there in order to do it. And then further down the center stack there, you've got a few USB ports. So there are two USB Type-C ports there, and then this one is a little button specifically for the left side. So if you want to use wired Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, or if you wanted to enter or throw in a USB device for audio, you've got that flexibility, but you just need to make sure. If you're there, you're strictly charging, but if you're here, you're charging and you're also doing data transfer as well. I mentioned a second USB port there as well if you wanted to charge, and then push that little guy, 12-volt power point. Just pretty cool. So I know that is a lot of information, but that's everything you need to know about the infotainment system inside of the Kia EV9.